A cryptic telegram shatters the fog of London, whispering of a shadowy cabal, the Big Four, plotting to plunge the world into chaos. Can Hercule Poirot, the brilliant detective, unravel their deadly web before empires fall? Or will betrayal and danger outwit even his legendary mind? Dive into a heart-pounding chase across continents, where every clue could be a trap, and every ally hides a secret.
Chapter 1. The Shadowed Summons. The fog draped London in a shroud of mystery, its tendrils curling around the gas lamps that cast feeble halos on the slick cobblestones of Bloomsbury. It was October 1923, and Hercule Poirot, the meticulous Belgian detective, with a mustache as precise as his mind, stepped from a hansom cab outside his modest flat on Great Russell Street. His evening had been spent at a literary salon, debating the psychology of villainy with a coterie of Bloomsbury intellectuals. Now, as he adjusted his silk scarf against the chill, his sharp green eyes caught a flicker of movement in the mist, a boy, darting from an alley, clutching an envelope. "Message for Monsieur Poirot," the lad called, his voice cracking with urgency. "Paid a shilling to get it to you quick." "From whom, mon petit?" "Dunno, sir. Man in a cloak, face hid. Said you'd want it sharpish." The boy pocketed Poirot's generous tip and vanished into the fog. Climbing the stairs to his flat, Poirot's cane tapped a rhythm that matched his racing thoughts. The door creaked open to reveal Captain Arthur Hastings, his steadfast companion, polishing a silver cigarette case by the firelight. The room was a haven of order, shelves of neatly arranged books, a polished tea service, and a vase of chrysanthemums Poirot insisted on for aesthetic harmony. "Back so soon, Poirot?" Hastings grinned, setting the case aside. "Thought you'd be arguing with those bookish types till midnight." Poirot waved the telegram like a conductor's baton. "A summons, Hastings, from Brussels, I suspect. Let us see what storm brews tonight." He slit the envelope with a letter opener shaped like a miniature egret, revealing a cryptic message. "Poirot, beware the Big Four. Chaos looms in capitals. Decipher or fall. E. Duval." Attached was a slip of paper. X4Q82, Moon shades the Eagle's Nest. 9T5K3, Paris whispers treason. Hastings leaned over, brow furrowed. "Duval? That old codebreaker from the war. What's this Big Four nonsense?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of deep focus. "Not nonsense, mon ami. Rumors swirl in Europe's underbelly of four masterminds, a financier, a forger, a scientist, a strategist, plotting to bend the world to their will. Duval was no alarmist. This is grave." They pulled chairs to the oak table, spreading out graph paper and a dog-eared cipher manual. Poirot sipped a tisane of lavender and bergamot, murmuring, "X4Q82, perhaps a Polybius square. The phrase, an anagram." Hastings scribbled, "Moon shades. Doom hastens? No, too short. Patience, Hastings. Try Eagle's Nest as a key phrase." Poirot's eyes gleamed as letters aligned. "Enemy schemes in global seats. Paris forgery fuels war." The decoded message painted a chilling picture. The Big Four were orchestrating a plot to destabilize Europe via forged treaties, starting with a Parisian operation. A deadline, January 1924, hinted at a summit sabotage. "Good Lord!" Hastings muttered. "This is bigger than a bank heist. Scotland Yard?" "Non," Poirot snapped. "Duval warns of betrayal. We act alone until we know more." As they debated, a soft thud echoed from the balcony. A stone, wrapped in paper, shattering a pane. Hastings lunged for his revolver, but Poirot held up a hand, retrieving the note. "Surrender the code or burn." "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered. "They move swiftly." Before they could react, the front door rattled violently, then burst inward. 3 figures in dark cloaks stormed in, faces masked by silk scarves. The leader, a wiry man with a voice like gravel, snarled, "The telegram, detective. or your friend bleeds." Hastings aimed his revolver. "Try it, and you'll regret it." Poirot, calm as ever, stepped forward. "Monsieur, violence is so untidy. Let us discuss like gentlemen." The second intruder, a hulking figure, lunged at Hastings, who parried with a chair, sending it crashing. The third, wielding a curved dagger, advanced on Poirot. "No games, Belgian." Poirot stepped aside, his cane flicking up to disarm the man with a sharp crack. "Games, no. This is chess." From the shadows of the hall, a new voice cut through. A woman, young, with a French accent. "Enough!" She emerged cloaked in emerald green, wielding a brass candlestick. With a swift swing, she struck the leader's shoulder, forcing him to drop his cudgel. "Who are you?" Hastings demanded, pinning his opponent to the rug. "Claudine Duval," she gasped. "Emile's dead, poisoned in Antwerp. I have proof of their Paris plot. We must flee." Poirot grabbed his emergency valise, packed with false papers, a wig, and gold sovereigns. Hastings, the service stairs. They bolted down a narrow back staircase, the intruder's boots thundering behind. A gunshot grazed the wall, plaster dust stinging their eyes. In the alley, the fog was a blessing, cloaking their escape. Claudine led them through a warren of side streets, her knowledge uncanny. "To the docks," she whispered. "A boatman can hide us." They dodged a speeding motor car, its headlights slicing the mist. A beggar by a lamppost hissed, "They're circling, mates! Watch the rooftops!" Poirot's eyes darted upward. A silhouette moved along a parapet, an archer, bow drawn. "Down!" he shouted, pulling Hastings behind a crate as an arrow whistled past, embedding in a barrel.
"Crossbows?" Hastings gasped. "What is this, the Middle Ages?" Claudine smirked grimly. "The Big Four favor theatrics." They sprinted toward the Thames, where the river's damp breath mingled with the fog. At a rickety pier, a grizzled boatman named Silas waited, his skiff bobbing like a cork. "Poirot, you old fox! Trouble again?" "Silas, to Blackfriars Bridge, vite," Poirot urged. As they rowed, Claudine explained. "Emile infiltrated a Viennese cabal, posing as a banker. He found a forged French decree, orders to seize disputed colonies, sparking war. It's hidden in this." She produced a silver cigarette case, revealing a micro-engraved document inside. Poirot examined it under a pocket lens. "Exquisite work. The forger's hand is in Montparnasse, oui?" She nodded. "An atelier Lumière, but they know you're coming." The skiff glided under the bridge's arches where the Silas pointed to a hidden mooring. "Safe house up there. Old smuggler's den." They climbed a rusted ladder to a derelict warehouse, its windows boarded but warm with a hidden stove. Inside, Claudine spread maps on a crate. "Emile said the Big Four's number 2 runs the Paris ring. A woman, Lila Moreau, master of inks and deception." Hastings cleaned his revolver. "How'd they find us so fast?" Poirot paced, twirling his cane. "Perhaps the boy was followed, or a traitor in Brussels." A sudden crash outside, a trash bin toppled. Hastings peered through a crack. "They're here. 6 men, armed." Poirot's mind raced. "The roof. There's a skylight to the next building." They scrambled up a rotting staircase, emerging onto a fog-slicked rooftop. The pursuers' shouts echoed below. Claudine pointed to a narrow plank bridging to the adjacent warehouse. "Cross it." Hastings went first, balancing like a tightrope walker. Poirot followed, his heart pounding but his steps precise. Claudine, last, kicked the plank away as a masked figure reached the roof, cursing. They descended into a fishmonger's shop, the air thick with brine. The owner, a burly cockney named Alf, recognized Poirot from a past favor. "Blimey, Gov, you picked the worst nights. Need a way out?" "To Victoria Station, the midnight train to Dover." Alf led them through a trap door to a cellar, then a tunnel used by wartime spies. Old Bolt Hole leads to a street near the station. The tunnel was damp, rats skittering in the dark. Claudine whispered, "Emile said you're the only one who can stop them, Poirot. The Big Four fear your mind." "Flattery, mademoiselle, is unnecessary, but I accept the challenge." Emerging near Victoria, they blended into a crowd of late-night travelers, clerks, actresses, a drunken poet reciting Keats. At the ticket counter, Poirot used aliases, Monsieur Leclerc and Captain Dubois. As they approached the platform, a newsboy shouted, "Extra! Diplomatic scandal in Paris!" Poirot bought a paper, scanning it. A forged letter, leaked to the press, accusing France of arming rebels. "Their work begins," he muttered. A whistle shrilled, the midnight express. They boarded a second-class carriage, the seats worn but private. Claudine hesitated. "I must warn others in Brussels. Take this." She pressed the cigarette case into Poirot's hand, the key to their vault. They clasped hands, her eyes fierce. "Bonne chance, Monsieur Poirot." The train lurched forward, London's lights fading into the fog. Hastings leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "Well, Poirot, we've dodged arrows, bullets, and knives in one night. Not bad for a start." Poirot gazed out, the rhythm of the rails steadying his pulse. "A start, oui. In Paris, we hunt the forger. The Big Four think us prey, but Hercule Poirot is the hunter. To the city of light, mon ami, and to victory." The carriage rocked gently, carrying them towards danger and destiny. The shadowed summons answered with courage and cunning.
Chapter 2. Parisian Forged Facades. The midnight express from Dover clattered into Gare du Nord at dawn, its steam hissing like a serpent in the crisp Parisian air of October 1923. Hercule Poirot, his mustache impeccably waxed despite the harrowing escape from London, stepped onto the platform with Captain Arthur Hastings at his side. Disguised as art dealers, Monsieur the Clerk and Capitaine Dubois, they blended into the bustle of porters, flower vendors, and bleary-eyed travelers. The city of light sparkled under a pale sunrise, but Poirot's green eyes scanned for shadows, the Big Four's reach ever present in his mind. "Hastings, mon ami," Poirot murmured, adjusting his fedora. "Paris is a canvas of beauty, but beneath lies a forgery of truth. We seek Lila Moreau, number 2 of this nefarious quartet." Hastings, nursing a bandaged wrist from their London scuffle, nodded grimly. "That cigarette case from Claudine, it's our only lead. Atelier Luminet, was it?" "Oui. A den of counterfeiters hidden in Montparnasse. But first we secure a base." Poirot led the way to a taxi, directing the driver to a discreet pension on the Ile Saint-Louis, owned by Madame Veronique, an old ally from his Brussels days. The pension, tucked behind an ivy-draped courtyard, was a haven of creaking floors and lavender-scented linens. Madame Veronique, a stout woman with a knowing smile, greeted them in a parlor adorned with faded tapestries. "Hercule, you rogue! Trouble follows you like a stray cat." "Chère Veronique," Poirot kissed her hand. "We need shelter and silence. No questions, s'il vous plaît." She winked and ushered them to a garret room with a view of the Seine's glittering ripples. Over a coffee au lait and croissants, Poirot examined Claudine's cigarette case under a magnifying glass. The micro-engraved document, a forged French diplomatic seal, bore a watermark, a serpent coiled around a quill, the hallmark of Lila Moreau. "The seal," Poirot mused, "could authorize false troop movements. It points to a gala tonight at the Opera Garnier, where Moreau is rumored to unveil a masterpiece, a painting, perhaps, to fund their schemes. Hastings buttered a croissant. A gala? We'll stick out like sore thumbs in our travel tweeds. No, mon ami, we shall be art connoisseurs, dripping in Parisian flair. He opened his valise, revealing silk cravats, a monocle, and a bottle of pomade. To the tailor, vite! By noon they were transformed. Poirot in a velvet jacket, his cane gleaming, and Hastings in a tailored suit that barely hid his military stiffness. At a Montmartre tailor shop they overheard whispers of the gala, a charity auction for war orphans, a perfect cover for illicit deals. A seamstress, catching Poirot's eye, slipped him a note. Beware the gilded frame, Moreau watches. Another ally, Hastings whispered as they left, the note tucked away. Or a trap, Poirot replied, his mind spinning. We proceed with caution. The Opera Garnier loomed that evening, its golden facade ablaze under chandeliers. The air buzzed with perfume, laughter, and the clink of champagne flutes. Poirot and Hastings, armed with forged invitations, mingled among aristocrats and bohemians. A string quartet played Debussy, but Poirot's ears caught a discordant note, a hushed exchange in a corner. A woman in a sapphire gown, her auburn hair piled high, held court near a velvet curtain. Her voice was honeyed, her gestures commanding. Lila Moreau, Poirot whispered, noting her emerald ring, a serpent design. Hastings sipped champagne. She's dazzling. Hard to believe she's a criminal mind-master. Beauty, Hastings, is the finest mask. Poirot approached, bowing. Mademoiselle, your reputation as an art patron precedes you. I am Leclerc, dealer in rare canvases. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, assessed him. Monsieur Leclerc, your accent betrays a cosmopolitan soul. Tell me, what do you seek tonight? A masterpiece, Poirot said smoothly. Perhaps your Delacroix. Her smile tightened. You're well informed. The auction begins soon. As she glided away, Poirot noticed a man shadowing her, a gaunt figure in a black tailcoat, his face half hidden by a scarf. Her guard, Poirot murmured. Note his limp, Hastings, a war wound, perhaps. The auction commenced in a mirrored salon, paintings unveiled to gasps. The centerpiece, a supposed Delacroix, Liberty's Dawn, its vibrant strokes depicting a revolutionary heroine. Poirot's magnifying glass revealed a flaw, a brushstroke too modern, a pigment anachronistic. Forged, he whispered to Hastings, a test of our skill. They bid modestly, observing. A Russian émigré won the painting, but Poirot caught Moreau slipping a folded paper to the gaunt man, who vanished into a side passage. We follow, Poirot said, leading Hastings through a maze of backstage corridors, past props and powdered wigs. The passage descended to a hidden door, guarded by a thug with a scarred cheek.
Invitation only, he growled. Poirot feigned drunkenness. Mon ami, we are lost. The champagne, it leads us astray. Hastings played along, stumbling. As the god laughed, Poirot tripped him, pinning his arm with the cane's silver head. Quick, Hastings! They slipped through, finding a candle-lit chamber where the gaunt man counted stacks of forged banknotes, British pounds, French francs. A ledger lay open, listing shipments to New York. Evidence, Hastings hissed. But footsteps echoed, Moreau, with 2 armed men. Leclerc, or should I say Poirot, you're meddlesome. Poirot smiled. Mademoiselle, your forgery is exquisite, but your secrecy lacks finesse. She sneered. You'll never leave Paris. A smoke bomb exploded, filling the room with choking haze. Hastings coughed, grabbing the ledger. Poirot hurled a prop sword, shattering a lamp and plunging them into darkness. Run, he shouted. They slipped through a trap-door to the opera's understage, dodging pulleys and ropes. Moreau's men pursued, firing silenced pistols. A bullet grazed Poirot's sleeve, tearing silk but not flesh. They emerged into a rain-soaked alley, the ledger clutched tight. Hastings panted. "Now what?" "To the Seine," Poirot said. "A boat awaits." They sprinted through Montparnasse's twisting streets, past absinthe dens and artists' lofts. A flower girl, recognizing Poirot from a past case, tossed him a key. "For the boathouse, monsieur." At the riverbank a skiff bobbed, piloted by Jean, a wiry riverman with a scar from a duel. "Veronique sent me." "Trouble?" "Always," Poirot replied, boarding. As they rowed toward the Havre, Poirot flipped through the ledger. Names, dates, and sums pointed to number 3, an American tycoon funding the Big Four's arms deals. "New York, Hastings, our chase continues." Hastings grinned, rain dripping from his hat. "Escaped again. Satisfying, eh?" Poirot nodded, the Seine's ripples reflecting the city's fading lights. "Oui, but the game grows darker. To America, mon ami, where the web tightens."
Chapter 3. Skyscraper Shadows in the Big Apple. The transatlantic liner Aurora sliced through the Atlantic's choppy waves, its horns blaring as it docked at New York's bustling pier in November 1923. Hercule Poirot, his mustache a defiant curl against the salty breeze, disembarked with Captain Arthur Hastings. Their aliases, Monsieur Leclerc and Capitaine Dubois, still cloaking their identities. The Manhattan skyline loomed, a jagged forest of steel and ambition. But Poirot's sharp eyes sought the shadows where number 3 of the Big Four, an American industrialist named Victor Kane, wove his criminal empire. "Hastings, mon ami," Poirot murmured, adjusting his Homburg hat. "This city pulses with energy, but beneath its jazz and glitter lies a heart of greed. Kane's fingerprints are on the ledger we took from Paris." Hastings, his wrist healed, but his nerves taut from their Parisian escape, clutched the stolen ledger. "Arms deals? Fake bonds? This Kane's a busy devil. Where do we start?" Poirot tapped his silver-headed cane. "The ledger mentions a jazz club, the Sapphire Note in Harlem. Kane's men launder money there. We begin tonight." They hailed a yellow cab, weaving through honking traffic to a discreet boarding house in Greenwich Village, run by Mrs. O'Malley, a sharp-tongued Irish widow Poirot had once aided in a blackmail case. Her parlor smelled of corned beef and secrets, its walls papered with faded roses. "Hercule, you old fox!" she exclaimed, pouring tea. "What's the trouble this time?" "Sanctuary, chère madame," Poirot replied, kissing her hand, "and perhaps a whisper of Harlem's underworld." She smirked. "The sapphire notes of Viper's Nest. Watch for a dame called Ruby. She knows Kane's moves." After settling in, Poirot and Hastings donned new disguises, Poirot as a Belgian financier with a monocle, Hastings as his American bodyguard, sporting a fedora and a borrowed Brooklyn accent. At dusk, they ventured to Harlem, where neon signs flickered and saxophones wailed. The Sapphire Note was a smoky den, its dance floor alive with flappers and sharp-suited men. Ruby, a statuette singer in a sequined gown, crooned a sultry blues number, her eyes scanning the crowd. Poirot, sipping a mocktail to stay sharp, caught her glance. "That is our contact, Hastings. Observe her necklace, a silver cog, Kane's emblem." Hastings nodded, his fake accent slipping. "How do we get to her?" "Patience, mon ami. The stage has its own rhythm." After her set, Ruby slipped into a back room. Poirot followed, flashing a forged business card. "Mademoiselle Ruby, I am Leclerc, investor. I seek unique opportunities with Monsieur Kane."
Her eyes narrowed, but a spark of curiosity flickered. "Kane don't meet just anyone. What's your angle?" "Arts," I lied smoothly. "I acquired a Delacroix in Paris. Provenance questionable. I hear Kane appreciates such flexibility." She hesitated, then scribbled an address. "Be at this penthouse tomorrow night. High-stakes poker game. Kane's there. Bring cash." As they left, a bunk bumped into Hastings, slipping a note into his pocket. "Kane knows you're coming. Roof's the only way out." "Another warning," Hastings muttered. "Friend or foe?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "We shall see. For now, we prepare." The next day, they scouted the address, a half-built skyscraper on Fifth Avenue, its skeleton of girders piercing the clouds. Kane's penthouse, a temporary office atop the unfinished tower, was a fortress of glass and steel. They bribed a construction worker for blueprints, revealing a service elevator to the roof.
That night, dressed in tuxedos, they infiltrated the poker game, posing as high rollers. The penthouse glittered with crystal chandeliers that the air crackled with tension. Kane, a barrel-chested man with a cigar and a scar across his brow, dealt cards with a predator's grin. Ruby sat nearby, her eyes unreadable. "Gentlemen," Kane rumbled, "welcome to the big leagues. Minimum bet's 10 grand. Poirot, feigning nonchalance, tossed in chips. "I play for stakes higher than money, Monsieur Kane." The game unfolded, Poirot's sharp mind reading bluffs in every twitch. Hastings, less adept, lost heavily, but kept Kane talking. "Heard you're in arms, Kane. Big deals overseas?" Kane's laugh was a growl. "You fishing, Dubois? Stick to cards." Poirot noticed Ruby slip a key to a sidekick, a wiry man with a limp, the same from Paris. The ledger's clues clicked. Kane was shipping forged bonds to Europe, funding the Big Four's sabotage. As the pot grew, Poirot staged a distraction, accidentally spilling champagne on Kane's suit. "Pardon, monsieur," he exclaimed, palming the sidekick's key in the chaos. Hastings whispered, "Got something?" "The key to Kane's safe," Poirot replied. "Follow my lead." They excused themselves, claiming a need for air. Using the key, they slipped into a guarded office, where a safe held documents, contracts for illegal arms to rogue states, signed with the Big Four's serpent quill mark. But alarms shrieked. Kane's men had spotted them. "Intruders!" a guard yelled, drawing a Tommy gun. Poirot hurled a desk lamp, plunging the room into darkness. Hastings tackled the guard, wrenching the gun away. They fled to the service elevator, but it jammed halfway to the roof. "Climb!" Poirot urged, scaling girders with surprising agility. Bullets sparked off steel, Kane's man in pursuit. On the roof, a bitter wind howled, the city's lights a dizzying sprawl below. Ruby appeared, breathless. "I'm with you. Kane is my jailer, not my boss. Take this." She handed Poirot a map marked with a Shanghai address, number 1's lair. "Why help us?" Hastings demanded, dodging a shot. "Revenge," she snapped. "Kane killed my brother." A rope ladder dangled from a construction crane. Poirot, Hastings, and Ruby slid down, landing in an alley as Kane's men reached the roof. A stray bullet clipped Hastings' shoulder, blood seeping through his tuxedo. "Keep moving," Ruby urged, leading them through a maze of tenements to a speakeasy safe house. Inside, a bartender stitched Hastings' wound, no questions asked. Poirot studied the map. "Shanghai, mon ami, the heart of the Big Four's web. This confirms the ledger's trail." Ruby lit a cigarette. "I'm coming. Kane's finished here, but number 1's worse." Hastings grimaced, bandaged but resolute. "Another chase, another city. We're getting good at this." Poirot smiled, the skyline fading as they planned their escape.
to the Orient, where shadows deepen. But for now we've struck a blow. Satisfying, no? They slipped onto a freighter bound for Shanghai, the harbor's fog swallowing their trail, the fight against the Big Four burning brighter.
Chapter 4. Oriental Enigmas Unveiled. The freighter Jade Star cut through the South China Sea, its hull creaking under a monsoon's restless breath as it neared Shanghai in December 1923. Hercule Poirot, his mustache a defiant banner of order amidst the salty chaos, stood at the bow with Captain Arthur Hastings and Ruby, their Harlem ally. Their aliases, Monsieur Leclerc, Capitaine Dubois, and Mademoiselle Rose, shielded them from the Big Four's prying eyes. The map from New York, tucked in Poirot's waistcoat, pointed to number 1, the elusive Chinese strategist orchestrating global discord from Shanghai's shadowed heart. Hastings, mon ami, Poirot said, his green eyes scanning the misty horizon. Shanghai is a city of masks, silk markets by day, treachery by night. Number 1 hides in plain sight, but this map leads to a temple where secrets are currency. Hastings, his shoulder wound healing but stiff, adjusted his borrowed sailor's cap. That ledger from Kane mentioned a temple. Jade Lotus, was it? Sounds like a trap. Ruby, her sequined glamour traded for a practical coat, lit a cigarette. Trap or not, number 1's the key. Kane feared him, said he's a ghost, untouchable. Poirot tapped his silver-headed cane. Ghosts leave footprints, mademoiselle. We shall find his. The ship docked at Shanghai's chaotic Bund, where rickshaws clattered past opium dens and neon-lit dance halls. Disguised as traders seeking rare manuscripts, they checked into a discreet guest house run by Madame Li, a former opera singer with a network of informants. Her parlor, fragrant with jasmine tea, was adorned with lacquered screens depicting cranes in flight. "Hercule, you bring storms," Madame Li said, pouring tea. "What devil hunts you now?" "A shadow called number 1, Poirot replied, sipping delicately. "We seek the Jade Lotus Temple. What whispers reach your ears?" She leaned close. "The temple's no place of worship. It's a fortress for a warlord named Wei Zhang. He deals in secrets, not prayers. Enter at dusk, but beware the silent guards." Armed with this, they prepared. Poirot donned a silk robe, posing as a scholar. Hastings, a merchant's guard with a hidden revolver. Ruby, a translator with a knack for picking locks. At dusk, they navigated Shanghai's labyrinthine alleys, dodging hawkers selling jade trinkets and dodging the eyes of street watchers. A beggar, his face scarred by smallpox, pressed a coin into Poirot's hand. "For luck," he rasped. But the coin bore a serpent quill mark, the Big Four's sigil. "A warning or a lure?" Hastings muttered. "Both, perhaps," Poirot said, pocketing it. "Keep sharp." The Jade Lotus Temple loomed in a walled compound, its pagoda roofs curling like dragon tails under a crimson sky. They slipped through a side gate, Ruby picking the lock with a hairpin. Inside, incense hung heavy, masking whispers of conspiracy. Monks in saffron robes moved silently, but their eyes glinted with suspicion. Poirot, feigning interest in a jade Buddha, overheard 2 figures in a cloister. "The summit in Geneva? Forged papers will turn allies to enemies," one said,
his voice low and precise. "That's Wei Zhang," Ruby whispered. "Number 1. They crept closer, hiding behind a lacquered screen. We, a lean man with a scholar's poise and a scar across his cheek, studied a scroll etched with coded symbols. A guard, armed with a curved Dao sword, stood watch. Poirot signaled to Hastings, who created a diversion by knocking over a bronze incense burner, its clang echoing. As the guard turned, Ruby slipped forward, palming the scroll. But Wee's eyes snapped to her. "Thieves!" he barked, drawing a concealed pistol. The temple erupted. Guards poured from hidden alcoves, their blades flashing. Poirot, agile despite his stature, used his cane to trip a swordsman, while Hastings fired warning shots, scattering monks. Ruby, dodging a knife, led them to a side chamber where a trapdoor revealed a tunnel. "Down!" she shouted, as arrows, tipped with a strange green sheen, whistled past. The tunnel, damp and lined with ancient tiles, led to a subterranean vault. Inside, crates of forged documents, treaties, maps, even royal decrees bore the serpent quill mark. Poirot's magnifying glass revealed the hidden message in the scroll. Coordinates for a Himalayan stronghold, number 4's domain. "Mon Dieu," Poirot breathed. "This is their arsenal of lies." But footsteps echoed, Wee's men closing in. Ruby rigged a crate of fireworks from a nearby shrine, lighting a fuse. "Run!" she yelled, as explosions lit the tunnel, smoke choking their pursuers. They emerged in a monsoon-soaked alley, rain lashing their faces. A rickshaw driver, an old man with a knowing grin, beckoned. "Madam Lee sent me. Trouble?" "Always," Hastings panted, climbing in. As the rickshaw rattled through Shanghai's neon-lit chaos, Poirot studied the scroll. These coordinates, high in the Himalayas, number 4, the scientist brews poisons there. We must follow. Ruby wiped rain from her brow. "I'm in. Wee's men won't stop hunting us." Hastings, clutching his revolver, grinned. Outran arrows and swords. Not a bad night's work. Poirot nodded, the city's lights blurring past. Satisfying, but the true enigma unveils ahead. To the mountains, where the Big Four's shadow looms.
They secured passage on a junk bound for the Himalayan foothills, Shanghai's mysteries fading into the storm, their resolve a beacon in the gathering dark. Chapter 5: Alpine Ambush and Betrayal. The wind howled through the Swiss Alps, a bitter January gale that clawed at the fur-lined hoods of Hercule Poirot, Captain Arthur Hastings, and Ruby, as their mule-drawn cart creaked along a snow-dusted trail in 1924. Their aliases, Monsieur Leclerc, Capitaine Dubois, and Mademoiselle Rose, had carried them from Shanghai's steamy chaos to this frozen wilderness, where the map from the Jade Lotus Temple pointed to number 4's fortress, a reclusive German scientist named Dr. Heinrich Voss. The air was sharp with pine and danger, the jagged peaks hiding secrets as dark as the Big Four's ambitions. "Hastings, mon ami," Poirot said, his breath clouding as he gripped his silver-headed cane. "These mountains guard Voss's lair like sentinels. His poisons could choke empires, but we shall unmask him." Hastings, his shoulder wound a dull ache under layers of wool, scanned the cliffs. "That map's coordinates lead to a chalet above Zermatt, but this snow, it's a death trap." Ruby, her Harlem bravado tempered by the cold, adjusted her scarf. "We feared Voss, said his toxins could kill a city in a day.
We're walking into a viper's nest." Poirot's green eyes glinted. "Then we tread lightly, mademoiselle." They reached Zermatt's alpine village at dusk, its chalets glowing like lanterns against the Matterhorn's looming shadow. Posing as mountaineers seeking rare minerals, they checked into a guest house run by Frau Hilda, a stern widow with a limp and a knack for overhearing secrets. Her parlor, warmed by a crackling fire, smelled of mulled wine and cedar. "Herr Leclerc," she said, eyeing Poirot's impeccable mustache, "you're no miner. What brings you to these heights?" "Curiosity, Frau," Poirot replied, sipping Glühwein wine. "We seek a scientist who studies unusual compounds." Her eyes narrowed. "Was? He's a ghost up in Chatten Chalet. Locals say his experiments glow at night. Take the East Trail, but watch for wolves." After settling in, they prepared. Poirot in a fur-lined coat, Hastings with a concealed revolver, Ruby with a dagger strapped to her thigh. At dawn, they hired a guide, a wiry youth named Lucas, who warned of avalanches and mountain spirits. As they ascended, a vulture circled overhead, its cry echoing like a warning. Near a frozen stream, Lucas paused, pointing to tracks in the snow. "Not wolf, but human, circling back," he said. "Someone's watching." Poirot's mustache twitched. "An ambush, perhaps. Stay alert." The trail narrowed, cliffs rising like walls. A rock clattered above, and Hastings spun, spotting a glint of metal, a sniper's scope. "Down!" he shouted, shoving Poirot behind a boulder as a bullet sparked off the ice. Ruby drew her dagger, scanning. "Voss's men?" Before Poirot could answer, a low rumble shook the pass, an avalanche, triggered by the shot. Snow roared down, a white tidal wave. Lucas yelled, "To the cave!" pointing to a nearby crevice. They dove in, the snow sealing the entrance like a tomb. Inside, the cave was lit by bioluminescent fungi, casting an eerie glow. Poirot, brushing snow from his coat, examined the walls, etched with chemical formulas. "Voss's work," he murmured. "Nerve agents, disguised as mineral research." Hastings, panting, checked his revolver. "Trapped like rats! Now what?" Ruby found a narrow tunnel, this way, might lead to the chalet. They crawled through, emerging in a pine grove near Chatten Chalet, a stone fortress perched on a cliff. Smoke curled from its chimney, and guards patrolled with Mauser rifles. Poirot spotted a drainage grate, unguarded but rusted. "Ruby, your skills," he said. She picked the lock, and they slipped into a basement humming with machinery. Vats bubbling with green liquid, their fumes stinging. A ledger on a workbench listed shipments to London, toxins for the Big Four's final strike. But a voice cut through the hum, familiar, chilling. "Welcome, Poirot." A figure stepped from the shadows. Inspector Japp, their old Scotland Yard ally, now in a black coat with the serpent quill pin. "Japp," Hastings gasped. "You're the number 4?" Japp's laugh was cold. "Not quite. Voss is the brains, I'm the muscle. You've been a thorn too long." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Betrayal, mon vieil ami. How long have you served them?" "Since the war," Japp sneered. "The Big Four pay better than the Yard. Hand over the ledger." Ruby lunged, her dagger flashing, but Japp parried with a baton, knocking her down. Hastings fired, the shot grazing Japp's arm, but guards flooded in, pinning them. Voss emerged, a gaunt man with wire-rimmed glasses and a voice like frost. "Your meddling ends here, Herr Leclerc. My gas will reshape nations." Poirot, hands bound, smiled. "A scientist who betrays humanity lacks imagination, Herr Voss." Voss smirked, signaling a guard to open a valve. Green mist hissed from a pipe, but Poirot had palmed a match from the workbench, striking it against his cane's hidden flint. The spark ignited a chemical spill, flames erupting. "Run!" Poirot shouted as chaos engulfed the lab. Hastings broke free, tackling a guard, while Ruby slashed her bonds with her dagger. They fled through a service hatch, emerging onto a snowy ledge. Jap pursued, ski-clad, his rifle aimed. "You can't escape!" The ledge led to a frozen lake, its ice creaking underfoot. Poirot, spotting a crevice, threw his cane like a javelin, cracking the ice under Jap. He fell through, vanishing into the depths with a scream. Voss's men followed on skis, firing. Ruby grabbed a discarded ski pole, using it to vault over a snowbank, while Hastings slid down a slope, bullets kicking up powder. Poirot, less nimble, rolled into a drift, feigning injury to lure a guard close, then tripped him with a hidden rope from his coat. They reached a shepherd's hut, where Lucas, who'd escaped the avalanche, waited with mules. "Knew you'd need me," he grinned. As they rode down, Poirot clutched a stolen communiqué from Voss's lab. Plans for a London summit to crash global markets, signed by Number 1. "England, Hastings, the final act awaits." Ruby, bruised but fierce, nodded. "Jap's betrayal stings, but we're closer." Hastings, winded, managed a smile. "Outran poison and bullets, a good day's work." Poirot gazed at the fading peaks. "Satisfying but the true battle looms in London's mists." They boarded a train to Geneva, the Alps' silence a fleeting respite, their hearts steeled for the reckoning ahead.
Chapter 6. The Reckoning at Thornfield Manor. The dawn mist clung to the rolling hills of Kent, England, in February 1924, as Hercule Poirot, Captain Arthur Hastings, and Ruby approached Thornfield Manor, a sprawling estate of ivy-choked stone and secrets. The transcontinental chase, from London's fog to Shanghai's alleys, New York's skyscrapers to the Swiss Alps, had led them here, where the Big Four's remnants planned their final summit. Disguised as a Belgian antiquarian, a retired officer, and a journalist, Monsieur Leclerc, Capitaine Dubois, and Mademoiselle Rose, they carried the weight of their discoveries. Forged documents, arms deals, poison formulas, and the betrayal of Inspector Jap, unmasked as a Big Four operative. The communiqué from Voss's Alpine lab pointed to this manor as the heart of their global conspiracy. "Hastings, mon ami," Poirot murmured, his green eyes piercing the haze as he gripped his silver-headed cane. "This manor is the stage for our dénouement. Number 1, Wei Zhang, orchestrates chaos here, but we shall bring order." Hastings, his shoulder scar a faint throb under his tweed coat, checked his revolver. "The communiqué mentioned a summit to crash markets. We've got the ledger, the scroll, and Voss's notes, enough to hang them." Ruby, her Harlem fire undimmed, adjusted her press badge. "We's cunning, but he doesn't know we're coming. Let's end this." Poirot nodded, his mustache a resolved curl. "A trap, mes amis, set by Hercule Poirot. Scotland Yard awaits our signal." They had contacted Chief Inspector Marwood, a gruff but loyal officer, via coded telegram from Geneva. Marwood's men were positioned in the woods, ready to storm the manor on Poirot's cue. The trio approached under cover of a milk delivery, their cart rattling along a gravel drive. Thornfield loomed, its Gothic spires piercing the mist, windows glinting like watchful eyes. At the gate, a guard with a bulldog's scowl demanded papers. Poirot, feigning a limp, presented forged credentials. "We seek rare manuscripts for the Brussels Museum. Lord Thornfield expects us." The guard grunted, waving them through. Inside, the manor buzzed with activity. Servants scurrying, guests in formal attire arriving for the charity ball masking the summit. Poirot's sharp eyes caught a familiar emblem on a footman's cufflink, the serpent quill of the Big Four. They were ushered to a library, its shelves groaning with leather-bound tomes. A butler offered sherry, but Poirot declined, sniffing a faint almond-like scent. Cyanide. "Careful, Hastings," he whispered. "The air here breathes treachery." Ruby, posing as a reporter, charmed a guest, a nervous diplomat, into revealing the summit's location. A hidden ballroom beneath the east wing. "They're meeting at midnight," he stammered, glancing at a pocket watch. Poirot led them to a servant's passage, where Ruby's lock-picking skills opened a locked door. They descended a spiral staircase, the air growing colder, the walls damp with age. At the bottom, a steel door guarded the ballroom. Hastings, using a wire from his coat, rigged a listening device, a trick learned from Ruby in Shanghai. Voices filtered through. Wei Zhang's precise tones, Leela Moreau's honeyed drawl, and Victor Kane's gruff bark. "The forged bonds are ready. We crash the London Exchange tomorrow, sparking panic. Nations will beg for our order." Moreau laughed. "My Parisian presses have flooded Europe. No one suspects." Kane growled. "Voss's gas is in place. Geneva's summit will choke on it." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The final piece, Hastings. Economic collapse, political chaos, and mass death. We strike now." They retreated to plant evidence, the ledger, scroll, and Voss's notes, hidden in a guest room to be discovered by Marwood's men. But a maid, her eyes sharp with suspicion, spotted them. "Who are you?" she demanded, reaching for a bell. "Journalist, darling. Just lost my way." The maid struggled, but Poirot's cane tapped her wrist, disarming her. "Mademoiselle, we mean no harm. Sleep." He pressed a handkerchief laced with a mild sedative from his valise, and she slumped. They slipped into the ballroom's antechamber, where a chandelier's crystals cast kaleidoscopic shadows. Guests mingled above, unaware of the conspiracy below. Poirot rigged a gramophone to play a distorted waltz, masking their movements. Hastings scouted a balcony overlooking the ballroom, spotting Wei at a table strewn with maps and forged bonds. But a new voice chilled them. A woman, British, familiar. "You've done well, Wei," she said. It was Lady Eleanor, a socialite Poirot had met in London, once an ally in a smuggling case. Her presence here, wearing the serpent quill brooch, was a gut punch. "Another traitor," Hastings whispered, his face pale. Ruby clenched her dagger. "She's their financier. I heard Kane mention her in New York." Poirot's mind raced. "We adjust the trap. Eleanor's wealth funds their chaos. Expose her, and the web collapses." They planted a hidden phonograph in the ballroom, recording the summit's damning words. But as they retreated, Kane's men, burly thugs in tuxedos, blocked the stairs. "Going somewhere," one sneered, brandishing a blackjack. Hastings fired a warning shot, the bullet shattering a mirror, guests screaming above, chaos erupting. Poirot hurled a smoke vial from his valise, clouding the air. Ruby slashed a tapestry, revealing a hidden passage. They fled through it, emerging in a wine cellar, barrels looming like sentinels. Kane's voice echoed behind, "Find them! No loose ends!" The cellar led to a greenhouse, its glass fogged with mist. Wei waited there, a pistol in hand, his scar gleaming. "Poirot, your persistence is admirable, but futile. Surrender, and I'll spare your friends." Poirot smiled. "Monsieur Wei, you mistake me for a pawn. I am the king." He signaled Ruby, who kicked a gardening hose, spraying Wei with icy water. Hastings tackled him, wrenching the gun away. But Moreau appeared, her sapphire gown a stark contrast to the dagger she held. "You're outmatched, detective." Ruby lunged, disarming her in a whirlwind of kicks. Poirot, using his cane, tripped a guard rushing in. The greenhouse became a battlefield, glass shattering, plants toppling. Hastings, grazed by a stray bullet, grunted but fought on, pinning Kane against a trellis. Lady Eleanor emerged, her composure cracking. "Enough! Kill them!" Poirot, dodging a tossed knife, activated a hidden flare in his cane, signaling Marwood. The woods erupted with shouts, Scotland Yard storming the manor. Way, realizing the trap, tried to flee, but Poirot barred his path, reciting the summit's recorded words, "Your plans, monsieur, are now public." Way sneered, pulling a vial of green liquid, Voss's poison. "Then we all die." He smashed it, but Poirot, anticipating, had donned a concealed mask from his valise, tossing spares to Hastings and Ruby. The gas fizzed harmlessly, neutralized by a chemical Poirot had sprinkled earlier. A trick from Voss's own notes. Marwood's men burst in, cuffing Way, Moreau, and Kane. Eleanor, cornered, tried to bribe her way out, but Poirot presented the phonograph cylinder. "Your voice, my lady, betrays you." As dawn broke, the manor's fires were doused, the conspirators led away in chains. Poirot, Hastings, and Ruby sat in the library, sipping cognac from Lord Thornfield's private stock. Marwood joined them, shaking his head. "You've saved the world, Poirot. Market stable, Geneva safe." Hastings raised his glass. "To surviving traitors, gas, and gunfire. A fine end." Ruby smirked. "I'm heading back to Harlem. Got a score to settle with Kane's leftovers." Poirot gazed at the sunrise, the mist lifting. "Order restored, mes amis. The big four are broken, their shadows banished. Hercule Poirot rests, for now." The manor's silence was a balm. The global chase concluded in triumph, the world's fragile peace preserved.